This program is brought to you by Emory University.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the 20th Annual Inspiration Awards. My name is Raquel Leibovich, and I've had the privilege to serve this year as the president of the Emory Public Interest Committee, or as we lovingly refer to it, EPIC. For those of you who are not familiar with EPIC, we're the student-run organization here at Emory Law School that promotes an ethic of service and supports those students who seek to dedicate their entire careers in public service. But we also strive to instill in each and every law student that public service should always be a part of every legal career. As president of EPIC, I can tell you that this is our most important event each year. Tonight, we celebrate the actions of 3 rock stars who happen to be attorneys. They've inspired us not only to work hard, but to remember that what we do deeply affects people's lives. This is the most important function of being a lawyer. In fact, if you look at history, every important event in our country has been shaped by the actions of lawyers. But the Inspiration Awards serve yet another very important purpose. In order for a law student to be immersed in public service, we need to provide them with the opportunities in order to participate in that work. Consequently, all of the money that we raise through this event tonight goes directly to support students working at unpaid public interest jobs this coming summer. In fact, there are many past and future EPIC grant recipients here in this room this evening. Some of them you just saw in the video. I know it was kind of hard to hear, but they really were showcasing their invaluable experiences that they've gained through having access to this grant. At the reception, I encourage all of you to speak to these eager students and ask them about their projects, passions, and goals. Your donations shape those goals and future careers of people who will change the world. So thank you for joining us tonight to honor these 3 attorneys whose work has touched so many of us. Also, a huge thank you to our incredible Inspiration Award co-chairs, Molly Woldridge and Caitlin Barnes, and our advisory board, who's essential to our organization. Our program coordinator, Ebony Mobley, and our assistant dean for public service, Rita Sheffy. And especially to all of you. EPIC is honored to host this event, but we recognize that none of this would be possible without your support and donations. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Dean Robert Shapiro to offer a few words of welcome. Thank you.
Well, welcome. It is a pleasure to have you join us this evening to celebrate 3 exemplary public servants, as well as 1 outstanding student who we know will become an exemplary public servant. As we honor these extraordinary individuals, we also take this occasion to highlight the importance of public service, to celebrate some recent public interest achievements at Emory Law, and to rededicate ourselves to the high ideals of public service exemplified by these EPIC Inspiration Award recipients. Next year, Emory Law will be celebrating its centennial, and we look forward to highlighting our 100-year commitment to serving the public. Now, promoting public interest is central to the legal profession and to the mission of Emory Law School. At Emory, we seek to promote the rule of law at home and around the world, and we highlight the responsibility of all lawyers to serve the public interest. From the first day of law school, we emphasize that a commitment to public interest should be part of every lawyer's professional identity. This year, during Welcome Week, all of our students heard inspirational remarks and ideas for participating in public service from our inaugural Assistant Dean for Public Service, Rita Sheffy, who also serves as EPIC's advisor. Having just celebrated her first anniversary at Emory Law, Rita is building upon the law school's well-established public service programs. Her career-long commitment to public service parallels Emory Law's further for advancing the public interest. Among the numerous activities of the Center for Public Service during the past year were the following special programs. In August, we held a new student convocation featuring a talk about the importance of public service by Alok Chakravarty, Emory Law School class of 1997, the lead federal prosecutor in the Boston Marathon bombing case. Also in August, we partnered with the Atlanta Bar Association in presenting a panel in honor of the 50th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act, which included a conversation with Congressman John Lewis and civil rights attorney Fred Gregg. By way of further connection between Emory and Congressman Lewis, we announced last spring that thanks to a generous $1.5 million gift from an anonymous donor, Emory Law would establish a John Lewis Chair in Civil Rights and Social Justice. And we continue to seek the additional $500,000 necessary to fund the chair fully. Our Public Interest Dinner Series introduces select first-year students and upperclassmen to the variety of public interest careers available to them. Speakers this year have included Sharon Hill, class of 1985, the executive director of Georgia Appleseed; Angela Oliver, class of 2010, a policy analyst with the Centers for Disease Control; and most recently, Brian Tyson, the executive director of the Public Defender Council; Brandon Bullard, class of 2007, an appellate specialist with the council; and Megan Ballard, class of 2014, a public defender in the Northeastern Public Defender's Office in Gainesville. 2 weeks ago in this auditorium, we heard a stirring lecture in honor of Martin Luther King Jr. Day by Sherilyn Ifill, President and Director Counsel of the NAACP Legal Defense and Education Fund, Incorporated. I also want to recognize the achievements of some of our existing programs. Our outstanding clinics continue to promote the public interest as they provide cutting-edge experiential education for our students. Our newest clinic, the Volunteer Clinic for Veterans, was recently announced as one of the 3 finalists out of more than 3 dozen nominations for the 2016 Emil Gumpert Award of the American College of Trial Lawyers. Just last week, we hosted representatives of the selection committee, and we await their decision. Now, the accomplishments of our students are always a special source of pride. Our students work throughout the metro area at a range of organizations and with many of you. They also work throughout the country and the world, at the ACLU Women's Rights Project in New York City, at the Department of Justice in Washington, D.C., the Human Rights Center in Accra, Ghana, and at the International Justice Mission in the Philippines, to name just a few. But of course, at the heart of our public interest law program is the Emory Public Interest Committee, EPIC, the student group that has created this very special evening. I'd like to recognize the many students who have made tonight possible, and in particular, the student co-chairs Caitlin Barnes and Molly Wooldridge and EPIC President Raquel Leibovitz. I'd also like to thank Assistant Dean Sheffy and the Center for Public Service Program Coordinator Ebony Mobley and the other members of the Emory Law staff for working with the EPIC leaders to plan tonight's event. Finally, I'd like to add my personal congratulations to each of tonight's award winners. I salute these leaders and EPIC for their remarkable achievements and salute all of you for your commitment to public service. Thank you for your support. And now I'd like to welcome, Emily Liu, Associate Director in our Center for Professional Development and Career Strategy. I'd like to welcome her to the podium for presentation of the 3L Outstanding Commitment to Public Service Award. Emily.
Good evening. It gives me great pleasure tonight to present the Outstanding 3L Commitment to Public Service Award. This award is given to the student who has exemplified the greatest commitment to public service through her work at Emory Law School. Nominations are received from students, faculty, and staff, and a committee of faculty reviews these nominations and selects the recipient. The 2016 winner of the Outstanding 3L Commitment to Public Service Award is Hannah Shatila. When I met Hannah as her career advisor during her first semester of law school, she shared that she was passionate about public interest work, and she has clearly exhibited that devotion to public service during her 3 years at Emory. Hannah started volunteering at Emory Law as soon as she arrived here as a 1L. She jumped right in during orientation and volunteered with the Wonder Root Art Center Beltline project. Hannah is passionate about child advocacy, which inspired her to become the 1L representative for the law school's Child and Family Law Society. She worked hard to help plan a juvenile immigration law panel for the society. She has also served on the EPIC Student Board and co-chaired the 2014 annual EPIC Conference on the legal challenges of fostering and adopting children in Georgia. In addition to her commitment to EPIC, Hannah has volunteered as a caseworker with Emory Law's Student Legal Services and interned with the DeKalb County Child Advocacy Center. As a first-generation American, Hannah also has a strong interest in immigration law. She has served as the volunteer coordinator for Emory's Immigration Law Society and spent a summer interning at the DOJ's Executive Office for Immigration Review. As an advocate for human rights, Hannah naturally participated in Emory's International Humanitarian Law Clinic as a student attorney for Human Rights First and for the State Department's Office of Global Criminal Justice. Hannah brings compassion and a deep sense of service to the legal profession. I'm excited to share that Hannah has been accepted into the Department of Justice's Honors Program, where she will be working after graduation. At this time, I'm pleased to present the 2016 Outstanding 3L Commitment to Public Service Award to Hannah Shatila. Congratulations.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Patrice Perkins Hooker, and I am pleased to be here to introduce the recipient for the Unsung Devotion to Those Most in Need Award to Judge Peggy Walker. It is my honor to introduce a good woman, a wife, and a mother who is indeed a worthy recipient of this award because of her many years of committed and dedicated service to children and youth in Georgia and throughout our nation. From her humble beginnings in a coal camp in West Virginia, she has become nationally recognized a nationally recognized role model for her work with various children's issues. I encourage you to read the information about her bio that's contained in the program to find out more about her life journey. But I want to tell you a story about how I met Judge Walker. More than 15 years ago, when I was the founding chair of the Juvenile Justice Fund, which is now known as Youth Spark, we were endeavoring to bring the issue of adolescent sexual exploitation to the attention of juvenile judges, law enforcement officers, and the social and health care systems. Judge Walker allowed that same passion that she has exhibited over her entire life with regard to emotionally disturbed children, programs that deal with drug endangered children, and children in the juvenile justice system who needed a guardian ad litem. She took upon herself the ability to help us promote education and awareness issues with the juvenile court judges throughout this state. During this time, she was the first and only juvenile court judge in Douglas County, and she was the chair of the Georgia Council of Juvenile Court Judges. She had our juvenile court, the Juvenile Justice Fund, CEASE volunteers, and CEASE stands for the Coalition to End Sexual Exploitation. Train these judges and help them be more aware that children who are sexually exploited are not guilty of prostitution. Children who are not, who are arrested for, put in jail sometime, but they are not guilty of prostitution because they are below the age of consent. She was our champion when we were trying to raise money for Angela's House, which was the only residential treatment center for sexually exploited young ladies east of the Mississippi. Years later, when she became president of the National Council of Juvenile Court Judges, she was extraordinarily helpful at raising national attention to the issues of child sexual exploitation and child trafficking. I tell you this story because George Walker has been a person committed to public interest issues and public service for decades. As such, I feel that she is incredibly worthy of this recognition as an unsung hero. Judge Walker.
Good evening. I would like to thank Dean Shapiro. I would like to thank the members of the Public Interest Committee for giving me this opportunity to speak to you this evening. And I am very humbled to receive this award. I have been to this presentation many times. I never dreamed there would be a day where I would be a recipient of the award. Many of you are law students, and I want to speak to you about the choices you make as you enter into your career, because I would have never dreamed that this would be my career. Because what I wanted was to be a litigator, and what I wanted was to be a transactional attorney, and that's what I did. But in reality, I missed being with people. I was a school teacher, and I loved children, and I'm very blessed today to have one of my students here from those high school days in Clayton County, and I will confess it was in the 1970s. And I also have my first employer here, Judge Castellani, who gave me my first job as a lawyer, where I learned as a clerk in the Superior Court in DeKalb County what you don't do, and that's as important as learning what you do. So what I'm going to tell you about your career is that it's very challenging when you get out into such a competitive field where everybody is good at what they do, and getting your jobs is very much a challenge to you. But the important part is remembering and learning who you are and using your talents in a way that will assist you with your career, because that's what happened. I went to the juvenile court as a volunteer because I had a master's degree in education, because I loved children, and because I really wanted to have that fulfillment of doing the people work. Pushing paper was just not what was appropriate for my career. And I learned that there were many things that I could do well in speaking on behalf of children. But because of my experience as an educator, because of my background in child development and background in psychology, I had the credibility to lead change locally, and then in the state, and now nationally. I have had the opportunity to do so many things, including a manual here at Emory, where I helped write a manual on family preservation, because I do not believe that the state is the best parent for our foster children. I have had the opportunity to work with drug-endangered children, because substance abuse is one of the largest reasons that we have children in foster care, and we're not doing a very good job in that area. I'm now focusing on child fatality review, and I hope those of you who choose careers in public interest will want to look at the science, because that will give us the answers that we need when we are doing our public interest work and when we're doing public service to lead us to make the changes that we need to make in all of our systems. In addition to working on child fatality review, I have had the honor of working on the Child Welfare Reform Council. And that brings me to a point that I want you as the students to know is very important. And that point is persistence. In 2005, when I completed my fellowship with 0 to 3, and I came back to the state, and I met with child welfare, I said, if we're really going to do this work well, It's our job to put children who are very young with parents who have the potential to adopt them, even if we're working reunification. In 2005, I was told that would never happen. I'm pleased to tell you that today, the Child Welfare Reform Council's report will be coming out shortly, and one of the recommendations is that we place very young children in homes where there is the potential for them to be adopted. You will face many obstacles over your career, but what is important for you is to choose the right thing. Don't choose the easy thing. Don't choose the thing that is best for you, but always make the choice to do the right thing, because when you do the right thing, you get the right results. Our generation has done a very poor job in the field of mental health. There's a difference between mental health and mental illness. We have the ability to plant the seeds for mental health, and we must build a system to serve those who have mental illness. We call it a system, but it is a Band-Aid on a gaping wound, and I hope that your generation will take this on and do what needs to be done so that our prisons and our streets are not the homes for our mentally ill. Thank you.
Good evening. We're in the South. Good evening. There we go. I'm delighted to be here to support a great program and to honor all these very deserving award winners, but especially my longtime friend and close colleague for about 15 years, Sally Cullion Yates, the Deputy Attorney General of the United States of America. Now, I only have about 3 minutes, I'm told, to talk about Sally, so I'm not going to review her incredible biography. You can read some in the program. You want to learn more, you can just Google her. And I've spoken at several events honoring Sally, so I'm going to try out some new material. But what I wanted to do is make 2 points that connect Sally's experience to the EPIC program. And the first is that if we want our best and brightest law students to devote themselves to the public interest, and particularly to government service, which isn't so publicly rewarding these days, we have to expose them to that work. Sally was undoubtedly going to serve others during her legal career, but she wasn't destined to end up as the second highest official in our Justice Department. After excelling in law school, she was hired at the biggest law firm in Atlanta, King & Spalding, and she had a bright future there, and as she's told me many times, she left King & Spalding to go to the U.S. Attorney's Office in Atlanta, thinking she'd stay for just a few years, get some interesting and useful experience, and then return to the private sector. That was more than 25 years ago now, because once Sally joined the Justice Department, she fell in love with the work, as so many people who get involved in public interest work do. And in the Justice Department, she had the opportunity to protect our community and our nation. She had the best clients a lawyer could ever have, the people of the United States and the victims of crimes who you can help. And she had lots and lots of colleagues and partners dedicated to the same noble work. The point is, for many lawyers, it takes that first taste of public interest work to make it a career, or at least part of a career, and their service ends up providing great benefits for all of us, as Sally's has during her 2 decades as an assistant U.S. attorney, her time as a U.S. attorney, and now her service in Washington. And EPIC is the source of that first taste of public service for many lawyers. And I think students here and the students who learn about all of the people being honored tonight really will be inspired to achieve those things as they go forward in their careers. The second point Sally illustrates is the opportunity that exists today for all lawyers to provide leadership in the public interest. Now, Sally was destined to serve other people. She comes from a family dedicated to service. She married into another family dedicated to service. But the public servants in the Cullion family were the men, like her father, who served with distinction on the Georgia Court of Appeals. Sally's grandmother was a lawyer too. She was one of the first women admitted to the Georgia bar. But she worked as a legal secretary to the male lawyers in the family. And Sally's mother also served, but in the way good Southern housewives did at the time, in the church and the local community. Sally's career illustrates the opportunities for women that have opened up just in the last couple generations, And even in the 21st century, well into the 21st century, she's a pathbreaker. The very first woman to be a presidentially appointed U.S. attorney in Georgia, only the third woman ever to serve as deputy attorney general. The path that she's blazed should really be an inspiration for so many students who don't look like me or many of the other people whose pictures you see hanging in places like this. We need people, all of the people and all of the talent we have to help us in times of great challenge. And Sally is an example of the kind of people that we now allow to do that, who end up benefiting our nation and our state in ways that we really can't measure. So I want to thank EPIC and everybody who supports EPIC for providing all the opportunities you do and for selecting Sally Yates as an exemplar of leadership in the public interest for all Emory Law School students and alumni and all the other lawyers in our community to emulate. You couldn't have made a better choice, and it's with real pride and great respect that I introduce you the Deputy Attorney General of the United States, Sally Quillian Yates.
Wow, well, thank you, Dave, for your incredibly generous words. But the fact of the matter is that it would be much more appropriate for Dave to be receiving this award tonight than presenting it. And I say that not just because of all of Dave's accomplishments, although they are many. Justice of the Georgia Supreme Court, former United States Attorney, clerk to Supreme Court Justice. When I think about EPIC and what I think that EPIC is about, I think about a decision that Dave Namias made just a few days after September 11th, 2001. Dave was an AUSA in Atlanta at that time, and after the events of 9/11, Dave decided almost immediately to raise his hand and to volunteer to go to Washington to work on national security matters, to go into the eye of the storm in a very uncertain time. Now, he didn't do this because he particularly wanted to do it, and he didn't do it because of what it would do for his career. He did it because it needed to be done. And that's the definition of acting in the public interest. That's true public service. Now, I was told that my remarks here tonight should focus on advice to the students that are here, and to me, that's kind of tricky territory. It's difficult to give advice without sounding really insufferably pedantic, but here it goes. I was in church on Sunday, and the minister's sermon there focused on a column in a book by David Brooks, and in which he really examines a choice that all of us make in our lives, and that is the choice of whether we are going to live for our resume or our eulogy. And his basic point, I think, in this column was that we all pretty much agree that the things that folks talk about in eulogies, the virtues that are discussed there of courage and selflessness and connection to other people, we all agree that those are the most important things, but yet we spend most of our time and our attention in our lives really kind of focused on the resume virtues of status and wealth and achievement. Now, I think Brooks and my minister were really talking about this in terms of our complete selves, but I think that question can be asked in our professional lives as well. How are we going to spend our legal lives? For what purpose are we going to use the talents that we've been given and our gifts and our education? When Dave Namias decided to go to Washington to work on national security, he didn't do it because of the status or what job it might lead to next. He did it because his country needed him. Now, I've been fortunate over the course of my career to have been inspired by others who similarly have practiced law for their eulogy. And you are hearing from two tonight, Jack Harden and Judge Peggy Walker, and I am so honored to be included here with you all tonight. But another notable person that comes to mind for me is Charlie Curbo. And the students that are here tonight are far too young to know who Mr. Curbo was. He was ultimately a lawyer, a partner at King & Spalding, and he was very close to President Carter. In fact, when President Carter was president, he was called by the New York Times as President Carter's one-man kitchen cabinet. He was his closest advisor. Well, when I was a young associate at King & Spalding, I was assigned a pro bono case to represent a woman by the name of Lovey Morrison Jones, who was the first African-American landowner in Barrow County, Georgia. Miss Jones owned 92 acres of property there, 6.2 of which had just been annexed by a real estate developer to build a subdivision. The problem was that back in the 1930s, when Miss Jones got her property, she was mistrustful of the white court system, so she didn't record her deed. Instead, she carried it folded up inside her dress every single day as she worked the fields. By the time she did record her deed, there was a conflicting survey that had been filed by an adjoining landowner that laid claim to her property. Now, by monetary standards, I will tell you that property really wasn't worth very much, but it meant everything to Miss Jones' family. So I filed an action to return the property to Miss Jones using a theory I had really planned on forgetting after first-year property class, and that theory is adverse possession. You actually do use it sometimes. Now, the time to try the case came, and I desperately needed help. Not only had I never tried a case, I had never even seen a trial before. So I went to see Mr. Curbo, who was known for taking young lawyers under his wing, and asked for help. And to my great relief, he agreed to help. And from that moment on, Mr. Curbo treated the Lovey Morrison Jones case with the same determination and the same attention that he treated the most important cases for his other clients like Coca-Cola. It never would have occurred to Mr. Curbo to have done anything else. The same man that had been the president's most trusted advisor walked that land with me, looked for witnesses with me, and when the time came to try the case, sat next to me and guided me. Mr. Curbo demonstrated, not through any grandiose lectures, but through his actions, a profound commitment to justice. Now, Ms. Jones' case didn't make any headlines. It wasn't about a whole lot of money, and we didn't establish any new legal theories during that trial. But that didn't make any difference to Charlie Curbo. He was absolutely devoted to Ms. Jones. This man, whose resume couldn't have been any stronger, was living for his eulogy. I've been fortunate in my current position to spend a little bit of time in the Oval Office myself, nowhere near as much as Mr. Curbo did. But I can tell you that while I take great pride in the small role that I've been able to play in addressing some of our country's challenges in our justice system, I can't walk into that office without thinking about Mr. Curbo, without thinking about him with all of his accomplishments, that he is out there walking that creek bed with me and searching for witnesses and throwing his whole self into representing Miss Jones. Mr. Curbo died a number of years ago, and I attended his funeral, and as you might expect, there was a huge crowd there. And as I talked with others there at the service, I learned that my experience with Mr. Curbo wasn't unique at all. It turns out he had been living for his eulogy his entire life. And all of us, our profession and our justice system, are the better for it. You too, as students here, will have opportunities to make the same kind of impact that Charlie Curbo did. Sometimes it may be in a big, grand way, like serving as an advisor to the president. But the seemingly small ways, the kind that may not make it onto your resume, they can change the world too. So thank you for this wonderful honor tonight and for including me in this very special celebration.
Chesterfield Smith was the patriarch of my law firm, Holland and Knight. He was president of the American Bar Association during Watergate, a towering figure in the American legal community. But he not only formed and led our law firm, he used his position as the head of a major law firm and president of various bar organizations to promote access to the justice systems and to help the poor and the disadvantaged. His motto, frequently expressed to others, was "Do good." Now, I'm not sure that the recipient of this next award tonight ever met Chesterfield Smith, but I do know that he shares the motto, "Do good." Our recipient is a transactional lawyer. He began his practice in Atlanta with the firm formerly known as Powell, Goldstein, Frazier, and Murphy. In the mid-1970s, he left that firm and together with C.B. Rogers, a distinguished alumnus of this law school, formed the law firm of Rogers and Hardin, where he has practiced for about 40 years, advising clients in complex business transactions in this country and abroad. But more importantly for our purposes tonight, he has used his position as a named partner in a major law firm as a pulpit to do good. Our recipient is comfortable in the boardrooms of corporate America, but he does not always stay in his office on Peachtree Street. Last summer, I did a volunteer service project in India, and when I was there, I got an email from a legal secretary in our office, Deborah Jennings, who is the assistant to my law partner and close personal friend, Laurie Webb Daniel. And she sent me this email saying, "I met your friend Jack." And then she sent me a picture. She attached a picture, and it was taken of Deborah and Jack on the streets of Atlanta at 5 o'clock in the morning. Deborah and Jack were on those streets seeking homeless persons and offering them help. Our recipient tonight, from boardrooms to the streets of Atlanta, follows that motto, "Do good." It is a high honor and a personal privilege to present the Lifetime Commitment to Public Service Award to Edward Jack Hardin.
Hal, thank you. I've always known you as a very precise, articulate man. Now I've discovered a newfound talent for creative hyperbole, and I'm grateful to be the recipient of it. When someone says they're going to give you an award for lifetime service, the first thing that occurs to you is, do they know something that you don't know about your tenure? Because whatever service I've rendered is not over. I want to thank EPIC for this honor. I also want to thank EPIC for the collateral consequence of casting a little bit of light on homelessness. And I want to be mindful of the request to speak to the students and the members of EPIC, and I'll get to that. But I want to take the opportunity to be here with so many intelligent and influential people to address one common misunderstanding about homelessness. And if you don't remember anything else I say tonight, I want you to remember this. Homelessness is not inevitable, it's not here forever, and it's not incurable. I know we all have heard Jesus said that the poor will be with you forever, but the statement can be interpreted by biblical scholars better than I can. The biggest problem I have with that statement is it lends itself to the assumption that these problems are insoluble, and therefore lessens the commitment to do something about it. We ended homelessness in America. It's happened before, and it can happen again. In the aftermath of the Great Depression, we had the worst homelessness that we had ever suffered. But within just a few short years, the consequences of World War II, the manpower demands of the Army, and of the munitions industry resulted in every single able-bodied person in our country needing a job, having a job. And we ended homelessness. And it continued to be ended through the post-war boom. It was only the invention of material handling equipment, mechanized farming, and other labor-saving devices that shrunk the available number of jobs for people with low skill levels. And the destruction of affordable housing under the rubric of urban renewal and slum removal, and the decision to decentralize our mental institutions without creating parallel facilities and treatment protocols for the individuals released that placed in our midst thousands of people with mental disabilities and without the skills to manipulate their lives and support themselves in an ever increasingly complex society. And these problems were abetted and exacerbated by the arrival of low-cost addictive substances, the famous nickel pack of cocaine. These are the four causes of modern homelessness, and all of these are capable of being addressed and are being addressed successfully. Now, newspapers that you read and I read are constantly reporting about the double-digit increases in homelessness in cities like New York and Washington and Los Angeles and San Francisco and Seattle and Honolulu. And it's true. Those cities are experiencing double-digit increases in the unsheltered population. But while that's been going on, in Atlanta, Georgia, we have reduced the count of unsheltered persons 50% over the last 4 years. And we have reduced the total count of homelessness in that same 4-year period by 30%. Now, we just did another count last week, and I need to knock on wood to hope that it continues to support our progress. But remember this, homelessness is not inevitable, and it can be ended, and we're well on our way to do it. And just remember that when you hear other people make comments, address them, push back. Help them understand that. Now, EPIC. As lawyers, we have two important privileges. The first is we receive a fantastic training in critical thinking. We learn to put aside our prejudices, to test assumptions, to go where the evidence leads us, to follow the facts, and be clear thinking. And once you've been to law school, you'll never think the same way again. And that's a good thing, mostly. Not always for your spouse, but otherwise it's a good thing. The second thing is we have the privilege of representing and advising our fellow citizens. Now, why do we have these privileges? From a societal point of view, there are two important functions that we need to accept responsibility for. First, we have a system that's designed to peacefully resolve disputes. And we are a critical part of that. And the idea is to resolve disputes peacefully and fairly. And that's our responsibility. The second is to make an effort to advance the needle in realizing the promise that our society makes of delivering equal access to fair justice to every citizen. Of course we're not there, but I'm often reminded of what Dr. King said, that the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. It depends on us. I want to commend Emory and EPIC and Dean Shapiro and the faculty of Emory for exercising the muscle of social responsibility early in life and helping students build it. and producing students that go into the world with an understanding of the special responsibility you have because of the privileges our society has given you. Thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for what you're going to do. And thank you for this honor. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Caitlin Barnes.
And my name is Molly Wooldridge.
And we're tonight's co-chairs for this event. First of all, we would like to thank everyone so much for coming out. It means so much to us to see so many friendly faces out in the crowd tonight. We would like to offer a final congratulations to all of our honorees. Your commitment to public interest is truly inspiring, especially to all of us students here tonight. We also have a few people we want to thank before we let y'all go. The caterers outside have generously donated a lot of great food, which you'll get to enjoy in just a minute. We've had dozens of student volunteers helping us out over the last few months, putting tonight together. And we've also had the real pleasure of working with an incredible team of women to pull all the details together to make this night happen. We couldn't have done it without them. Those women are Alyssa Ashdown in Marketing and Communications, Sarah King and Sarah Thomas in Development and Alumni Relations, and Amy Marceliana, who's in Event Planning. That team was led by Ebony Mobley and Assistant Dean Rita Sheffy in the Center for Public Service. From coordinating with the honorees, to organizing the name tags for tonight, to offering her invaluable service, Ebony's contributions cannot be overstated. And Dean Sheffy is a true gift to Emory Law School. We students are so lucky to have her with us. Finally, we'd like to thank everyone who has made a donation for the EPIC Summer Grants. That's why we're here tonight, is to raise that money. We've had so many donors, so I won't list them all, but you can find their names in the program. Your generosity means the world to students who are just starting out in their pursuit of a career in public interest.
We are excited to announce that so far we have raised $120,000 for EPIC Summer Grants. All of this money will go to deserving students who have secured a job in the public interest sector. We are so grateful for all of your contributions. If you are still considering donating, please note that we will be accepting donations until March 1st. Now we would like to invite all of you to join us for a reception in Hunter Atrium. Thank you.